long before the hum of electricity filled the world. Long before light switches and glowing screens, the world slept in shadows. The year was 1753, and nestled in the deep valleys of northern Europe. A small village named Elderwood lived in sync with the rhythm of the sun and flame, not just for warmth, but for survival. As soon as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, the villagers would prepare for the long hours of darkness. There was no power grid, no bulbs, no neon signs. Only flickers of candlelight, oil lamps, and wood-burning hearths lit the night. In Elderwood, life was ruled by fire. Inside a modest cottage, 12-year-old Elric stretched on his straw bed. His mother, Marta, was already up, kneeling beside a cast-iron stove, blowing gently into the embers that had nearly died during the night. A few sparks remained from the fire she had fed with great care before sleeping. Only if we let it. And we never should, Elric. Fire is our sun at night. If the fire died, the morning would begin cold and hard. To them, light was sacred, hard-earned, and precious. They called it living fire. Men worked in the fields, chopping wood, fixing carts. Women gathered herbs, washed clothes by the river, or spun wool under the sun. It's made from tallow or beeswax. They were either handmade at home or bought from the candle maker, a man named Old Corbin, whose fingers were stained yellow from years of waxwork. Children like Elric fetched water from the well or collected firewood from the forest's edge. The people here didn't know the concept of electricity, or worse, the unknown. Morning in Elderwood, she had pressed the oil from nuts collected weeks ago and stored them in a clay jar. She dipped the wick in and struck flint against steel until a spark caught. As dawn broke, thin light pierced the small gaps in wooden shutters. They were like caves meant to keep the warmth in and the darkness out. With patience, she added dried twigs, cupped her hands, and coaxed the flame to life again. Soon, orange warmth filled the small room. The scent of smoke and rye bread mingled in the air. Elric sat close to the lamp, trying to read an old book by the weak light. Elric rubbed his eyes and watched her. "Mama, will the fire ever stop burning?" Marta smiled softly. Time was measured by the length of the candle or the feel of the stars in the sky. They came with their own candle. Always, no one could afford to waste another's flame. Once inside, they would place their candle beside the others, creating a little pool of light. Magic or madness, we'll stick to what we know. Work, meals, and midday shadows. The villagers spent their days outside, doing everything that needed daylight. Some such thing. The wick had worn too thin. Elric held a weak torch, its flame hissing against the cold air. He walked through the forest's edge, heart pounding, guided only by instinct and memory. He tripped once, fell twice, and nearly gave up. Every household had a firekeeper, a person responsible for maintaining the hearth. Marta sent Elric to Old Corbin, carrying a small piece of cheese to trade for a new candle. The firekeeper had to make sure the fire never died, not even at night. Without it, the family would have no light to cook, no warmth to sleep, and no way to light the next candle. Elric banged on the door, voice shaking, and begged. Light was not abundant, so people valued the little they had. He helped Marta boil fat, dip wicks, and shape molds. He learned how to judge a flame's health, how to bank coals under ashes so they'd survive till morning, and how to read a room by flicker light. Candles were precious. Every night, Marta would ration their candles carefully. He carried 3 candles and a story about the time he met a monk from Italy who had a lamp that burned without smoke. Most families used tallow candles, cheaper but smoky. The richer ones bought beeswax, which burned cleaner and longer. The night falls as sunset approached. Villagers hurried home. Everyone feared the dark, not just for the absence of light, but for what it could hide. Wolves, thieves. In Elderwood, houses were built low, with thick walls and tiny windows. At nightfall, Marta lit their single oil lamp, which hung above the wooden table. Click, crackle, light. The flame danced, soft and golden, casting long shadows on the walls. He told stories of lanterns powered by strange gases, of buildings lit by lines in the wall. This story has 3 pages torn out, he sighed. Then make up the ending yourself, Marta said, smiling. They shared soup, thick and simplan slices of hard bread. Visitors by firelight sometimes, neighbors would visit after dark. They talked in whispers, laughed gently, knitted, shared stories. One evening, old Corbin visited. It was like magic, he said, eyes wide. He called it Alambic Kio... Marta shook her head. But Elric's curiosity was lit like a new flame. Candle crisis. One winter evening, something terrible happened. The family's last candles snapped in half. Panic crept into the small home. The fire in the hearth was dimming too. The logs were wet, the twigs gone. Outside, the world was pitch black. When he reached Corbin's hut, the old man was asleep. Corbin gave him a stubby candle and whispered, "Next time, don't wait till the dark to seek the light." Fire as family. By spring, Elric was learning to make candles himself. In Elderwood, knowing how to tend fire was like knowing how to breathe. People lived with it, died because of it, loved by its warmth, prayed by its glow. Evenings were not for rushing. They were slow, filled with whispers, embroidery, and imagination. Light as treasure one day, a traveler arrived from the southern cities. "Someday," he said, "people will laugh at the way we used to live in candlelight." The villagers laughed politely, but Elric didn't. He looked at the fire, at the stories in his mother's eyes, at the warmth of the oil lamp above. He wondered if light that came to Isley could ever be this magical again. With winter's grasp loosening, the people of Elderwood prepared for spring planting. But the wind carried a new song through the naked branches, a melody of change that stirred within young Elric, turning his thoughts from games of knucklebones to something older, wilder, bigger. He experimented with different waxes and herbs, trying to create a candle that burned brighter, cleaner, and longer. The men said little, but their grim faces spoke of the situation's seriousness. Inside the warm kitchen, Elric, his mother, and Corbin huddled around the dwindling fire. "We must keep a coal banked to start again in the morning," Corbin said, demonstrating how to fashion a makeshift fire piston. Corbin stood beside him, his weathered face etched with concern. As the villagers awoke and began their daily routines, Elric felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. Thank you. He had proven himself not just to the wandering scholar, but to the fire, to the darkness, and most importantly, to himself. He understood now that true mastery lay not in dominating the flames, but in harmonizing with them, in respecting their power and embracing their lessons. Looking out over the village, Elric saw not just a community, but a testament to resilience, a beacon of hope in the face of darkness. And he knew that as long as they tended the fires of memory, courage, and trust, Elderwood would continue to thrive, no matter what shadows might gather at the edge of the wood. The scholar watched expectantly, his gaze intense. Before lighting the candle, Elric carefully peeled away a layer of the wax canvas covering it, revealing a silver tube nestled inside. He didn't recall placing it there. Untwisting the tube, he found a sheet of parchment inscribed with strange symbols. Suddenly he understood. This wasn't just a test of skill. The scholar was assessing his character, trust. The word echoed in Elric's mind. Would he trust this unknown visitor? Would he risk showing his most prized possession? Slowly, he unrolled the papyrus and placed it near the lantern. As the candle flickered to life, the parchment blazed with an otherworldly glow, illuminating the room in vibrant colors. The scholar gasped, his composure momentarily slipping. "That's impossible," he whispered. The dragon's blood reacted violently to the papyrus, causing the flame to flare and dance wildly. Fear pricked at Elric's chest, but he stood firm. Trust. He thought of Corbin, his mother, the villagers who had shown him kindness and taught him the ways of fire. Trust. With newfound resolve, Elric reached out and gently pressed the glowing papyrus against the vial of dragon's blood. The liquid calmed, the flame steadied. Elric met the scholar's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. Then, as if remembering something, he turned to Elric. "Light one of these." He handed the boy a bundle of sticks tied together with twine. Elric hesitated. "But I thought you said you were ready now," Corbin interrupted gently. Taking a deep breath, Elric nodded. With trembling hands, he scraped some flint steel and ember from the hearth and applied it to the bundle. It caught, sending a shower of sparks into the air. The flame sputtered, grew, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Relief flooded Elric's mother's face. "Thank you, Elric," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You did well." But no matter how much he improved, a nagging question lingered. At first, whispers, then murmurs, then loud conversations. Some praised him. "He has saved us from the dark twice now." Others worried. Such power in such a young man. What if he loses control? Elric tried to ignore the talk, burying himself in his work. He helped Corbin deliver candles to every household, ensuring they had enough fuel to last the winter. He spent nights poring over ancient texts, searching for answers to his restless heart. He wanted to understand not just how to fight the darkness, but why. Why does my heart ache so? The answer came on a blustery night. Tall and cloaked in furs, he carried the emblem of a traveling scholar. "Old Corbin," he said, his voice echoing wisdom, "I heard tell of a boy who tamed the flames. Is this true?" Corbin's wrinkled face crinkled into a smile. "Indeed it is. This one has shown us all a light worth tending." The scholar turned his gaze to Elric, making the boy uneasy. "Gah, so you have mastered fire? How about we test your mettle?" he challenged. "Light me this candle." He held out a lantern containing nothing but a stub of candle and a pool of murky oil. It was a deceptively simple request, but Elric sensed a deeper challenge beneath it. "Of course," he answered confidently, though his hands trembled slightly as he reached for the flint and steel. A spark ignited the wick, sending a plume of acrid smoke billowing into the air. The oil in the lantern flared and guttered, threatening to spill. The scholar watched intently, his face unreadable. When the flame finally stabilized, he nodded curtly. "Not bad," he conceded. "But can you tame this?" He produced a vial filled with a viscous red liquid that writhed like a living thing. "What is this?" Elric asked cautiously. "Dragon's blood," the scholar replied cryptically. "A powerful accelerant."
"Oh, Captain, show me if you can harness its might."
The dragon's blood throbbed in the palm of Elric's hand, searing heat radiating through his veins. He felt the familiar tug of panic, the overwhelming urge to flee. But instead, gripping the vial tightly, he breathed deeply and stepped closer to the lantern. As Elric hurried home from the fields, rain lashed against him, wind threatened to knock him off his feet. Suddenly lightning split the sky, momentarily banishing the darkness. But then the clouds closed in again, blotting out the stars and plunging the world back into inky black. Reaching his home, Elric collapsed onto a stool beside the hearth, shivering uncontrollably. Even inside, the night seemed vast and empty. Then he noticed his mother gazing at the dying embers of their fire. Her face was etched with worry. "Elric," she whispered, "we need more fire. Can you help me?" Without a word, Elric nodded and ran to old Corbin's hut. He burst through the door and shouted, "Corbin, wake up! We need your help. Our fire is dying." The silence. Was it possible? Could the old man sleep through such a raging storm? Panic clawed at Elric's throat, choking him. He shook Corbin by the shoulders. "Wake up, please. We need your help." The old man stirred, blinked at him. "Your fire is dying," Elric gasped. Corbin nodded slowly, pushing himself upright. He looked frail in the flickering candlelight. "Come," he said, his voice raspy. "I will show you." That something stirred within him always near sunset when shadows stretched long and a familiar ache pulled at his heart. Elric sought solace in helping old Corbin, the village candlemaker. Together they would melt tallow, weave wicks, and mold wax into new candles. Yet even this simple routine failed to quell the restless feeling inside him. One day he found himself exploring Corbin's hut, discovering old books filled with pictures of fantastic beasts and arcane symbols. On a dusty shelf sat a brass astrolabe, its intricate design hinting at deeper secrets. Elric traced its celestial map with reverent fingers. Why did Corbin keep such things? He wondered aloud. No answer came. Perhaps there were none. Days passed, and Elric poured all his energy into his craft. Together, they walked through the storm to Elric's house, followed closely by 2 burly guards. News of Elric's accomplishments spread like wildfire through Elderwood. Then one bitter evening, as snow fell silently outside, a visitor arrived at Corbin's hut. As the shadows lengthened and the wind moaned through the trees, Elric prepared for his greatest challenge yet. Dawn broke over Elderwood, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold. And that's the end of part 2. If you like the story so far, and you want to support the series, consider becoming a patron. This is a story about light. Not just any light, mind you, but magic light, elemental light. The kind that can drive away the darkest of nights and illuminate even the deepest of secrets. It was an ordinary village filled with ordinary folk until an extraordinary event transformed it forever. You see, this wasn't just any village. But one fateful day, tragedy struck, stealing away the heart of their community and leaving them shrouded in a cloak of sorrow. But amidst the grief, a spark of determination ignited within Elric, a promise to keep the spirit of their village alive. It was a place known as Elderwood, inhabited by folks who spoke to shadows and painted tales on twilight. Travelers arrived with empty oil flasks and left with candles wrapped in wool. Their leader, Master Vel, asked to meet Elderwood's firekeeper. Elric stepped forward. Vel examined the village like a scientist observing a museum. "You've kept the old ways alive," he said. "Candlelight, oil, firewood. It's impressive, but slow." "Slow isn't always bad," Elric replied calmly. They worked quickly, stringing lines through trees, digging trenches, and installing steel boxes in homes. "Are you afraid of change?" "No," Elric said. "I'm afraid of forgetting." Elric watched with quiet fascination and dread. He respected the innovation but feared what might be lost. Master Vel stood beside a large switch mounted on a wooden pole. "With this," he declared, "we bring Elderwood into the age of light." He pulled the lever. Suddenly, every home, every window lit up with white buzzing brilliance. Children gasped. Mothers cried. Shadows fled. It was beautiful, but silent. No crackling. No dancing flames. No smell of wax or oil. Just light cold even, and unblinking. Vel chuckled. "Perhaps. But the world is speeding up, boy. We're stringing wires across valleys." Fire slept. The hearths were quiet. Elric sat at his table, staring at the electric lamp above him. It illuminated everything but warmed nothing, and learned that the true magic lay not in the absence of darkness, but in the balance between light and shade. What kind of light do you bring into the world? You a flickering candle in someone's window? A guiding star in a stormy sky? Or maybe even a lightning bolt illuminating the path ahead? Share your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to show your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep an eye out for magic, because you never know where it might spark. Children no longer sat by the hearth, they played under ceiling bulbs. Even Marta, once the keeper of the family flame, now clicked a switch without thinking. Soon, one city will speak to another with no delay. He noticed things others missed. The electric lamps made it harder to see stars. People stayed up too long, always working. Firekeepers were honored again. Elric became a new kind of teacher, not of just flame or wire, but of balance. He told children stories of the days before electricity, when fire was sacred. He lit a candle for Corbin every year, showed others that light could warm the soul or empty the sky. It all depended on how we used it. And sometimes, when stars returned and the lamps were off, Elderwood glowed not from brightness, but from memory. No one shared stories in the dark anymore. The light had made life easier but not richer. People will light homes with buttons, not flint. But just as he was about to return home, he saw something odd. A great lightning strike hit the hills, and Elderwood went dark. No glow, no buzz, only silence and panic. People ran to Elric's home, knocking frantically. "Do you still have fire?" they cried. "Can you help us?" Elric nodded. He opened a chest and pulled out a bundle of beeswax candles and a small pot of coals kept alive under ash. One by one, he relit the homes of Elderwood not with switches, but with flame. As the warm glow returned, people realized how much they had missed it. The scent, the flicker, the comfort. To offer light, Vel said, without fire. A thin blue streak glided across the sky. Not a bird, but something alive and humming. "What do you think?" she asked. "Should we ask the strangers to light our village?" Elric looked into the flames. "A light without warmth," he said quietly, "is only half a blessing." It moved like a ribbon of light, disappearing behind the horizon. They were tired of chopping wood, chasing dry twigs, boiling wax. Others, especially the older ones, were suspicious. "Flames speak to the soul," said old Gilda. What will a cold light do to our hearts? Vel smiled. It will free your backs, your lungs, your time. Elric remained silent. He had learned that decisions made in haste often led to regret. But change, like fire, does not stay contained forever. Elric was now 16. His back had straightened, his hands steadied, and his eyes carried the quiet weight of someone who had known both the beauty and danger of light. But something strange was happening. The nights no longer felt dark enough. For these folks, nighttime wasn't just the absence of daylight. Inside was a small metal key, a brittle paper map of Elderwood, a short note. When the flame dims not by darkness, but by man, remind them how to feel. It was a realm of its own, filled with whispers and wonders that danced in the flickering glow of candlelight. You'll never believe what I saw in the city of Halworth, he said, sipping hot broth at Marta's table. They've lit up the entire marketplace without fire. Marta frowned. What do you mean? Something called electric wire. A strange cord that runs through walls and brings light with the press of a switch. Elric leaned forward. Does it burn? No, Jocelyn said. It shines. Cold, bright, and endless. Let me tell you about a little village nestled in a valley surrounded by whispering woods. In this tale, I want to introduce you to a young boy named Elric, whose entire world revolved around the rhythm of day and night. 3 years had passed since Corbin's death. Elderwood, once a sleepy, shadow-covered village, was now known across the valleys as the Village of Flame. One autumn night, Elric stood near the eastern hill, watching the stars. The constellations his old friend shimmered as always. The next morning, a traveling peddler named Josen arrived with a cart full of spices, glass beads, and stories. Days later, a delegation from Halworth arrived, a group of 3 engineers dressed in dark coats with silver tools hanging from their belts. Marta asked, "Why come here?" That night, after the delegation left, Marta and Elric sat by the dying embers of the hearth. The next day, Elderwood's council gathered in the barn, the same place where fire school began. Some welcomed the idea of electricity. But when the villagers voted, the majority said yes. They wanted electricity. Within a month, Vel's crew returned with wagons of copper wire, strange glass bulbs, iron poles, and wooden reels. Marta noticed his unease. One evening, while walking past Corbin's old hut, he opened the wooden box his mentor had left him. The day came. At sunset, the villagers gathered in the square. That night, the village didn't light a single candle. The weeks that followed, life changed fast. People stopped buying candles. The fire school closed. The oil presses rusted. Elric began spending more time alone. He still lit candles in his room, not for light, but for memory. One stormy night, the wires failed. That night, in the square, Marta said aloud, "We must not replace the old with the new. We must let them live together." The council agreed to balance the two forces. Electric lamps remained, but every home was also given a hearth, a candle, and a small firebox. And that, dear listeners, is the tale of how a village found light in the most unexpected of ways. Now, before you go, I've got a question for you. Winter came early that year. The trees shed their leaves like old memories, and a cold fog hung low over Elderwood. The villagers had learned to live in 2 kinds of light, one powered by wire, the other by fire, yet something still stirred beneath the surface. A question no one dared ask aloud. Most nights, while the rest of the village sat under electric bulbs, he walked the edge of the woods, carrying only a lantern and silence. What if the fire meant more than just light? Elric had grown taller, his shoulders broader, but his heart still beat in rhythm with the flame. The door creaked open with resistance. Dust blanketed everything like snowfall. Wax drippings hung from broken shelves like old stalactites. A visit to the forgotten on a quiet evening, Elric made his way to Corbin's old hut, which had fallen into disuse. But the firebox still sat in the corner, cold, empty, but intact. As the flame grew, the shadows returned to dance along the walls like they used to. In that moment, the old hut didn't feel abandoned. It felt alive again. She was wrapped in a long wool cloak, her boots muddy, her hair streaked with gray. She introduced herself as Sister Selena, scholar of the old flame orders, who had once studied with monks who believed fire had a spirit. They never do, until the wires fail, or the skies darken too long. He knelt and whispered, You gave us fire, old friend. And now, we've almost forgotten how to listen to it. He lit a candle and placed it in the center of the hut. A stranger in the fog the next morning, as snowflakes floated down like ash, a stranger arrived. Without flint, steel match, or electricity. Do you still practice flamekeeping here? She asked Elric. Yes, he replied. But not everyone values it now. She held it near the open barn window where sunlight streamed in. Seelin looked around the village, at the glowing windows and humming wires. After a few moments, the wick began to smoke, then glow, then flame. And of people who believed each flame held a whisper of the past. We once harnessed it through the sky, the earth, and the mind. We only lost that knowledge when we stopped needing it. She stayed the night in Marta's home, where she and Elric talked for hours. She told him of old mountain temples where fire never died for centuries, of books written only by candlelight, the fire test a week later. Seelin invited the villagers to a ceremony she called the fire test. People gathered in the barn, curious and cautious. She placed a single, unlit candle in the middle of the room and asked the crowd, "Can any of you light this?" Silence. Then Seelin stepped forward and pulled out an ancient object of sunstone shaped like a bowl, polished and curved. The light reflected, focused. Instead, they lit candles, lanterns, hearths, and torches. The square was filled with golden glowing wires. No buzz, only warmth. The villagers gasped. It was about remembering. Fire, she said softly, is not just survival. It's memory, energy, time itself. Children walked with candlelit jars, creating rivers of light between homes. Even the doubters like Gilda whispered, "This feels like the village I once knew." Lessons reborn. Inspired by Seelin, Elric restarted Fire School, but with a twist. It was no longer just about candles or oil. It became a school of understanding the light. The idea of remembrance by fire has moved even those who swore by wires alone. He taught, not to oppose progress, but to guide its soul. How to track the sun and use it to light fire. How certain woods made flames of different colors. How herbs changed the smell and mood of fire. How old people passed stories only through flame-lit rooms, and most importantly, how to respect fire, not just use it, but it's not meant to stay in one hearth. It's meant to spread, gently like candlelight from one hand to another. Even children, who once only knew switches and sockets, learn to craft their first candle, strike their first spark, and sit silently in the glow of a dancing flame. The Festival of Flame that winter. Elderwood celebrated its first Festival of Flame, it read. Every household was asked to turn off their electric lights for one full evening. People sang old songs. They shared tales of their grandparents' times. Behind him, the village flickered half in candlelight, half in bulbs. Elric stood quietly beside the statue of Corbin, a candle in hand, watching how real light touched every face differently. He knew now. Light was never just about seeing. The letter from Halworth. 1 month after the festival, Elric received a letter sealed with red wax from Halworth the city, where electricity had first reached Elderwood. It read, "Greater than to Keeper Elric of Elderwood. Your Festival of Flame has reached us through song, story, and sketch. We request that you visit and speak before the Council of Light in Halworth. The future needs firekeepers. Will you come?" Lady Rhina, Council Speaker Marta's wisdom. Elric sat with Marta that night, holding the letter. "Do you think I should go?" he asked. Marta, now gray-haired and gentle as snowfall, placed a hand on his. "You carry Corbin's fire, my son?" He smiled, and for the first time in years opened the old box again, the one Corbin had left him. Inside, beneath the map and the key, he found something new. A folded parchment, hidden at the bottom. When the world forgets how to feel, remind them of the night before light. The departure? Elric packed only simple things. His old wax knife, a bundle of beeswax Sunstone Seelin had gifted him, and a copy of Corbin's notes. Before leaving, he stood at the edge of Elderwood as the sun set. Balance. As he walked down the path toward Halworth, lantern in hand, he knew this journey was no longer just about keeping fire alive. It was about keeping the meaning of light alive.
Ow!
And far ahead, in a world growing faster and colder, someone somewhere still